Welcome back to another episode of Holy Shift. We are on the back end of a day that had 6 transits.
It was so rude.
October 29th, 2025 was a really difficult day for a lot of people.
It was a really blunt day for me.
Well, it was full of Mercury. Like Mercury spread its glitter everywhere yesterday. I mean, 6 different transits in a day. Mercury rules the nervous system. It also rules communication. Obviously, emotions are going to be caught up in that.
Welcome to Holy Shift, the podcast where medicine meets mystery and healing becomes whole.
We're your hosts, Taylor Sappington
and Adrienne Irizarry.
2 clinicians, herbalists, and mystics who believe the old ways and modern medicine were never meant to live apart.
This is a space for the witches in the broom closet, the healers afraid to leave their mark, the world walkers who know they don't fit into the systems they were handed.
Here we go first, sharing our stories, our medicine, and the truth about what it really takes to reclaim your power, your health, and your place in the world.
Because the safest, most radical thing you can be is yourself.
This is your permission.
This is your portal.
This is your holy shift. So, how are you feeling today?
A little more in my body today.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was a woman on a mission, but it was like communicating all the things that just weren't working right. I'm like, There's a mess over here. This isn't working right. This isn't aligned for me. I felt like it was a clearinghouse yesterday.
You are not the only one that had a minor dispute with the people in your inner circle. I mean, we definitely ended the night with a bang where I'm like, oh, there it is. We were good all day, but there it is. There it is. We're just going to clean this up and let it go. And then we're going to wake up tomorrow morning and we're going to start anew. So yeah, unfortunately, but fortunately, I say unfortunately, and I know I've said this every podcast, the astrology is just going to keep doing its thing. Mm-hmm. I'm putting together the energy forecast for next week and I'm like, we have one day with no transits, but no transits doesn't mean no inner movement. Right. And we are heading into a full moon in Taurus. And we have, I believe it is Neptune going retrograde back into Taurus as well, too. Yep. So we have a couple different things on the horizon in the next week. Mercury. Is it Mercury? Yeah, Mercury's going retrograde.
What?
Next week. So yeah, the astrology is just going to keep us doing its thing. And I encourage everybody to get curious about what's going on in the sky, because what's going on in the sky really does, at least in large part, dictates what's going on in the collective and what's going on in your inner terrain. So, which, speaking of inner terrain, we're going to talk about the appropriation of herbs today. And I am currently seeing through another leg of education on herbalism, herbs. And my instructor constantly says that herbs are the way that we bring the celestial into the terrestrial. I love when he talks about it this way.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to have to remember that. It is so true.
Yeah. He's like, it's the bridge between the, obviously the terrestrial, which is us, and the celestial, what's going on in the sky, because every single herb has an affinity to a planet and the archetype of a planet. So it's interesting to watch what we've done with everything in the Western world. But, herbs is what we're going to keep on topic about today, hopefully wink. So I'm going to paint a picture. Adrienne, let me know if this lands for you. Okay. You walk into a crystal shop and there it is. Bundles of white sage wrapped in white twine, palo santo sticks, next to glitter covered good vibes only on a sign. And maybe for a while, some of you, like some of me in my ignorance, thought this is what spiritual people do, until I realized we were never taught to ask whose practices we were borrowing and what it cost them. So this episode is not about shaming anyone because these are things that I have participated in, right? It's about power and who holds it, how it's been taken, and how we begin to walk, back into right relationship with the earth, with our ancestors, and with our practices.
Yes. Oh, I love that lead in because as you were talking about the sage with the white twine, like all of a sudden that popped into my head. Yes. And all of the scorched earth that it left behind it
I
because
know.
like white sage is now like endangered
Yes.
because there was such a big uptick in
Mhm.
its use. And while I do believe that the elements have charging and cleansing properties,
Yeah.
smoke can and fire can be created in other ways. The
Salt,
Yep, salt. You can call the frequency in, and that is a
resins.
renewable resource. Like, there's lots of ways that it can be done. But yes, that was immediately what dropped into my head is that white sage is now like deeply in danger as a result of its over harvesting.
Can you tell for those who are listening that don't know the origin of white sage, can you explain a little bit about the origin of white sage? Do you know? Or is that something that like we could explore and come back with?
So, white sage,
I know that white sage is a plant that has always been utilized in sacred ceremony, and
yes.
oftentimes the utilization of white sage has been passed down orally as a tradition. So it was passed down from grandmother to mother, from mother to daughter, so on and so forth, right? This herb, from what I've done in terms of research, has been used to mark births. It's been
Mhm.
used to mark deaths. It's been used to mark rites of passage. It wasn't burned, guys. Please hear me when I say this. It wasn't burned to clear the vibe.
No, it's a native of Southern California,
Okay.
and it was used by the native people
Yeah.
in that part of the world. A lot of the plant's native range is Southern California and Northern Baja California.
Yeah.
So the native people of that area used it for ceremonial reasons, for medicinal reasons,
Yeah.
like colds and fevers and sore throats, which, you can use other forms of sage for similar kinds of things. It was really practical. Like they used it as like a flavoring agent. Again, like you would use other species of sage because there's different species of sage. We're specifically talking about Salvia apiana, I think is how you pronounce it,
Which is the white sage.
which is the white sage. But like garden sage can
Green
be,
with like a beautiful iridescent look on the leaf.
yes,
Almost.
it's like fuzzy almost
Yes.
on the leaf. And the leaves are bigger than you get on white sage. But like that can be used for all the same things. Dry it and you can use it for the same reasons, but it has an indigenous
Root.
cultural foundation. So using it to clear spaces really is an appropriation of another culture.
Yeah, I mean, because white sage historically has been used to, it's been burned, call
Mhm.
in protection, clarity, and spirit. And then
Mhm.
obviously one day the ceremony becomes criminalized. They're punished for practicing it. And decades later, just listen, right? Think about this. Your family lineage does something rooted in tradition. Then what they're doing rooted in tradition is criminalized. Your ancestors have been punished for practicing these ceremonial traditions. And then decades later, someone walks into an Urban Outfitters and buys the same plant wrapped in string that is now labeled a cleansing tool,
Mhm.
completely removed from the prayer, the language, and the lineage it was born into.
I mean, and that's like so many things, right?
Yeah.
Like it
Absolutely.
happens with herbs, it happens with spiritual practices, it happens with, I mean, we talked about this a lot when I was going through my pelvic steaming training, is
Yeah.
that this was a practice that's been used all over the world.
Yeah.
And because of that, there needs to be a reverence for its origin story. And
Yep.
that, you know, when you go to use somebody else's, I'm going to use the word technology. This could be the
It is a
way that
technology, though.
it is. It is. And when you go to use somebody else's technology, like making it so that there is understanding and reverence for its origin story rather than, oh, well, just like white sage, like, oh, this is a new age thing, like da 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 da, you know? So it's like yoga. You know, yoga comes out of Southeast
It's
Asia.
not to build your butt. And it's actually a wildly masculine practice.
Yeah.
As we walk in with our Lululemon and our aloe clothes, with our colored mats and our water bottles and our air of arrogance. Holy shit. Holy
Yeah.
shit. You know, like it's difficult when you start to unravel the masks or the veils that have been placed all over these things based on marketing. Okay. Western
Mhm.
marketing. We could have a whole podcast on that. And you recognize how diluted, how bastardized, and how disrespectful we have become in the
Yes.
practice of these technologies. It ain't to build your butt.
Yes. I mean, I am an East Asian medicine practitioner, but I am not East Asian.
Right.
And I have so much reverence for the lineage and the origin story of all of the technologies that I bring into and synergize in my work, that I alchemize in my work. But I know that I'm not of those cultures. Oh man, there are days I wish I was, honestly,
Amen.
because I so appreciate the depth and the wisdom of the cultures that these technologies have come out of.
Yeah.
And yet I am not of that culture. And being able to create that distinction is the difference between appropriation and
Reverence.
reverence and carrying on the wisdom that was imparted.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember too, herbs, whether we're talking about palo santo, white sage, holy basil, God, one of my favorites in the consciousness of that plant. It makes my heart so happy to talk about her, right? Nettles, which is a lot like having a father in a cup, right? We could talk about the consciousness of these plants. They all have consciousness. Right. And there is such a disconnect with the way that we use herbs in the Western world between the consciousness that's held within the plant and the consumption of the plant. We're very allopathic in the way that we utilize herbs. And the allopathic approach to the utilization of herbs really, again, dilutes the potency of what you can get from these herbs just from shifting the way that you work with them. But herbs are a living medicine. They hold memory, they hold relationship. They're not just tools, they're teachers. It's why you can add something into your system and feel like complete and utter shit. The teacher's trying to show you that it's not a good fit. And you need to shift in order to see, you know, the shift within you. But when we treat herbs like props, when we strip them of their stories and we place them on our altars like decoration, or we use them without forethought as to what it is we're introducing into our body, what type of conversation we're attempting to create, that is where the sacred becomes distorted.
Well, I mean, and sometimes you don't even need the tool to embody and use its frequency either.
Mm-hmm.
So I did an episode a little while back called Where Intention Goes, Energy Flows.
Yep.
And it's really true. Like the intentionality, like you said, around how we use these herbs and bring them into our experience is equally, if not more so, important in the grand scheme of things.
And I think most people need to pause for a moment and consider how they actually interact with what we would call a supplement, which can we go there in one hot second, please? Because that's a big topic of debate. When we are attempting to integrate something just to fix, plants don't want to be used like that. Literally, no. When I sit with a plant, it's about offering something. Like the plant is going to teach me, so I need to offer something. And the education that I'm currently receiving, it's all about offering tobacco to the spirit of the plant so that the plant provides me with the education that I need. And we both walk away feeling fulfilled, right? But when we attempt to implement a plant simply to fix, 9 times out of 10, that plant is going to teach us the lesson that it's not there to fix.
That is exactly why I do not post on social media different herbs that I use. And man, have I gotten questions about that. Yeah. And it probably affects my social media engagement and, people seeing me as an authority. But honestly, in my heart, I cannot get on board with just posting about an herb and its properties because yes, there are properties that are therapeutic and beneficial, but what it doesn't take into consideration is your individual constitution. So when I have people come to me and be like, yeah, I read that nettle does da 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 and it's rich in B vitamins and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes.
And vitamin C and iron.
And for your constitution, let's have a conversation. Like,
well, yeah.
I mean, nettle is one of the more broad spectrum that a lot of women's bodies can benefit from its therapeutic properties, but it's not for everyone. And I've had a few clients who, when I've mixed pelvic steaming herbs for them over the years, they're like, nope, my body is having some sort of an issue and it didn't want nettle.
Yeah.
And I had to make a change. And I made the change in what I was formulating for them.
Yeah.
And they were fine after that, but their bodies did not want nettle.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I'm working with somebody, let's just take the nervous system, for example, right? If somebody's getting a lot of headaches and they have an incredibly busy mind, hi, sister speaks, right? Like for probably both of us, the mind is constantly on a treadmill, catabolic mind, catabolic body, busy mind, busy body. But when we look at the wide spectrum of herbs that you can utilize, nervines are beautiful, okay? Mm-hmm. And here's the caveat. If your brain is already busy and your nervous system is already overloaded, I'm probably not doing you any favors by introducing a nervine to the collection of herbs that I'm offering you because it's information. It's information that an already overloaded system is going to have to consume, digest, metabolize, and integrate. And it doesn't have the bandwidth to do any of those things. So even though I present as a very air heavy sign, and I would probably benefit beautifully from nervines, I have to be in a particular state in order to receive the medicine that they have to offer. So in those situations, I pivot to adaptogens because it's a different way to go at the same quote unquote issue, which is not an issue. It's just data. But you've got all of these people out here going, I'm stressed. I'm going to take an adaptogen. And I'm like, well, what kind of stress are you talking about?
Yes. Like, I just had this conversation with a client the other day.
Like, okay, maybe you don't need adaptogens. Maybe you need nervines because it's an inverted presentation to the one that I just laid out. And you're taking rhodiola and ashwagandha and shishandra and skullcap. And like, you're just drowning yourself with adaptogens and your body's like, I can't breathe and I don't know what to do with any of this because the system that you're attempting to support is already at max capacity.
Yes. And so this is not an herb for a symptom system. And because we live in this Amazon Prime kind of world where
your herbs from Amazon, please.
Oh, yeah. Also, side note, please do not get your stuff on Amazon. I've had people go, oh, that link that you sent me. Yeah, I got this off of Amazon because I could save the shipping. And I'm like, Please don't. But
Heavy metals. Can we just explain why? So,
yeah.
like, when it comes to sourcing on Amazon, you're 9 times out of 10 going to deal with a quality issue, a quality control issue. And one of the things that you may not consider when it comes to herbs, go local if you can. Like, I imagine you have an apothecary in your community. And if you don't have an apothecary, maybe you have an herbal school in your community. And if you don't have an herbal school in your community, I imagine you have an acupuncturist that can point you in one direction or another, or an herbalist for that matter. Just go to the source, but we also have to consider things like heavy metal toxicity, which is very common with herbs. Where are they being grown? How are they being harvested? What are they being sprayed in? What is the process for, cultivating them so that they can finally become consumable by you?
Well, and I'm going to take that one step further is all of the things that Taylor said. And even if you get the same looking label on Amazon as the thing that perhaps you are getting recommended by a practitioner, it is not always what's in the actual bottle. I know that is mind-blowing for some people, but it is not always what's in the actual bottle. Sometimes the bottle is really close, but not exactly when it comes to you, or the safety label is broken, or there is something that looks hinky about it. People have found supplements that look exactly like what they ordered directly from the manufacturer off of Amazon. They thought they were saving money on shipping or the bottle itself. And then it gets to their house and it's filled with sawdust. It's filled with white powders of whatever. Yeah. And that's just going to make you sick. So please, if you've done this, this is not throwing shade. This is, I want you to be healthy. Please don't do it again. Just because there are so many issues. And then I work in Chinese medicine, and there are a lot of herbs that you have to watch manufacturers because of this heavy metal issue.
Yeah.
So sometimes even when you go to a provider and then you're like, oh, well, this bottle is $40. Let me see if I can find it cheaper. A lot of times you really do want to get the $40 bottle that the provider has sent you a link or said, here is the source, or I'm giving this to you, because they have checked and made sure that the origin of that product is healthy and above board. So there's so many things to consider when you're looking at herbs, and the interplay of herbs in formulas, in what it is that you're taking. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, I saw this infographic on social media, as Taylor puts her head in her hands. It's like, I saw this infographic about Australis, and I saw this infographic about this and about that. And so now I'm putting all these things together in the same tincture. What is that doing for your blood pressure? Have you checked your blood pressure? In a bad way. Some people who have normal blood pressure will put too many things together in the same thing, and it can make your blood pressure tank.
A really good compilation oftentimes is not overly complex. Correct. Because typically you can get a lot of what you need from just a few different herbs. And the further I go into my own herbal education, the less I use, because the more you recognize the versatility of certain things, right? And they're teachers, they're complex, they offer a lot of information, and in different presentations, they're going to offer a different piece of the conversation, right? So it's really important to remember, if you're doing kitchen herbalism, I love that for you. But teas and cooking are where I would keep that until you deepen your understanding and your education around the synergy of plants. Because once we take it out of teas, which day in, day out, teas can be medicinal. The amount is oftentimes, you need 32 ounces, and steeping time matters. And we could get into all of that, right? But when it comes to taking it outside of cooking with herbs, culinary, please do that. That's a beautiful way to get exposure, you know. And teas, you're really getting into, believe it or not, appropriation. We can talk about that in a minute. But you're getting into a murky area where you could potentially cause yourself more harm than you could do yourself good.
Yes. And I am grateful when I have pregnant clients who reach out and ask me questions about teas before they start drinking them. Because I'm like, I've had a couple of times where I'm like, oh, I am so glad you told me before you started doing this, because this is really not a good thing when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Because when you're not standing there and seeing the steeping time and all of that, like, it's hard to be like, yes, this tea is safe, this is not. Well, it has to do with the concentration, right? Like, how much of this are you consuming? And, Taylor and I have had this conversation over time that like Chinese herbs just like hit different.
They're a little more potent because of part of the plant that you're working with.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so like they have I'm going to call it for lack of anything outside of lay language, like a deeper saturation level.
Correct.
In the system. And, so Western herbs are gentler. Are they still potent? Yes. Are they still very effective? Yes. Do you need more of them to create similar or same actions and long-lasting effects as Chinese medicine? You need a lot more of them.
But even to your point there, glycerites versus alcohol distillation, right? Like the dosage of that needs to change. Oftentimes you double the glycerite in order to match the potency of the alcohol distillation, and certain herbs do much better with an alcohol distillation based on certain resins in the body of them versus glycerite. Some are interchangeable between the two. There's so much beautiful complexity that goes into this. And we live in a world that markets these materials as if it's easy peasy, 1, 2, 3, and there's no potential risks or side effects that need to be considered. And that's just not true. Remember, the plants that we're talking about are the original form of the synthetics you're taking in pharmaceuticals. It's just an isolated component of the plant. Now, when you think about the efficacy of the pharmaceutical, the only reason the plant that you're consuming doesn't have that efficacy is because it is working with all of its synergistic properties. That doesn't mean that the element of the pharmaceutical isn't there. It just means that it's being buffered or curtailed by the other components of the plant.
Oh, so I'm going to make that tangible for people who are, oh, that's an abstract concept. Let's talk about my favorite example of this, which is turmeric.
Oh,
curcumin is the active ingredient that works with inflammation and all of these things. And I walk into a supplement store and there are fucking bottles as far as the eye can see of curcumin, and it makes my eye twitch because curcumin is most effective when it is delivered as part of where it came from, which is turmeric, because there are other aspects of the biochemistry of turmeric that make curcumin work to the best of its ability. And I would say 90%, maybe even 98% of those curcumin bottles that you see on the shelves, they have no activating ingredients in it.
Like black pepper?
Correct. Black pepper, coconut oil. There are things that are needed in order to get it to do its job. And I will always recommend turmeric, like the actual turmeric over.
Also, it's going to be cheaper than the bottle, right?
Correct.
And the cool thing about turmeric is, depending on where you live, which I think you could do this in any geography at various points throughout the year, you can plant yourself a turmeric and then it will grow. It will multiply. You can propagate one into many.
Yes. Yes.
And there's so much beauty to that, because that's bringing the medicine into your home. That's bringing the medicine into your cooking. That's bringing the medicine into your backyard. That's freedom.
Absolutely.
So
that's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. I mean, same thing with ginger. Like, I have a white ginger out in my garden right now that I absolutely need to harvest. And we can grow culinary ginger here. But we spent so many years, I'm not going to name the brand because, we don't like lawsuits, but there was a brand of tea that we bought for many years. It was ginger. And I just loved this brand of tea because it was just ginger. I'm trying to avoid the terminology that really pains them. And I was like, you know what? I think we can make our own. Literally, I take the ginger, I dehydrate the ginger, I break the ginger down into small slices and or powder. And guess what we have for a lot less money?
Yep.
Ginger tea.
Well, and ginger, we'll take a step further. Fresh versus dried has different therapeutic properties also.
Yep.
So if you're a perimenopausal woman who is having hot flashes, I would not recommend using dry ginger.
Because it's just going to heat you up. Like it does exactly what you want it to do. So again, hence why we have both options on hand in this house, depending on where Taylor is in her site. I can do dried sometimes. And other times I'm like, I'm going to have to go with, like a more fresh grated, which is different taste, but just as good,
I did that last night. So I am today is day 1 of my cycle, which is why words are hard today. But last night I knew I was like right on the doorstep of this and I was going to need the warmth going into my cycle. So I made a pumpkin black bean sweet potato soup.
Oh, so yum.
Oh, it was so delicious. And I put ginger in it. I put coriander in it, but I used the dry form of ginger because I knew that I was starting to feel the chill a little bit. So I'm like, okay, there we are, that the blood is coming. And I was going to need the warmth that it was going to provide me to help combat any potential cramping. So that's how I used it.
Yeah.
But like in my house, it's really common to see me putting black tea bags into water or like the tea ball, depending on how I have it stored at my house. Cause like I get the plain tea bags and I like put your stuff into it.
Yep.
And I'll put slices of ginger into the water also. And I'll make myself like a black tea, which supports the kidneys, but with fresh ginger for that warming aspect, but in a subtle, gentle way, like rather than being more yang, which you'll get with the dried. So like, as we're talking about these nuances, guys, like, do you see how much nuanced knowledge your herbal wisdom keepers are holding?
So I said this in our last episode, and I'm going to say it again. It's medicine. What we practice is medicine. Does it constitute for the technological nightmare that is Western medicine? No. We're great in emergency medicine. I will always give the Western medical paradigm credit for what it does best, and that is trauma. It is so good with trauma. But that also leads me down a very interesting internal conversation of like, what's the line of playing God? But that's probably for another podcast episode, And when it comes down to it, the medicine that we practice is so very sophisticated. And one of the reasons your physician says no to all herbs is because they don't understand the nuance. They haven't been given access in formal education to this information. And most of them don't take it upon themselves to go study it. Many of them look for studies, and studies do exist, but we have to remember that studies have to be funded by someone. And most of the time, people funding studies are seeking a profitable outcome in the information. So if we were to take vitamin C and we were to go up against chemotherapy, I'm going to go here. Okay. We would see that vitamin C in extremely high doses, it holds its own. It does a pretty fucking good job, But what industry profits off of you? Did you know your oncologist buys the chemotherapy drugs, if you will, and then resells them to you at a profit? I'm going to get put on a list every podcast. Put on a list. But literally, oncologists purchase chemotherapy at a base cost, and then they resell them to the patients for therapeutic implementation.
It's all a business. And because this is a business, this is where like my mind overheats a little bit when, I try to work with people and they're like, well, I can't do that. It's too expensive. And I'm like, oh, this is so much cheaper than the long-term investment that you're going to be going in an allopathic direction, because we're talking about prevention instead of dealing with it after everything is not working properly. Like,
when we talk about a business, okay, who benefits from the majority of the population at this point, male and female, being infertile? Is it your local herbalist? No. Is it your local acupuncturist? No. Okay. Is it your local naturopath? Well, depending on what their specialty is, maybe, right? Is it your local OBGYN and fertility specialist? Oh, and the drug companies that are going to be utilized with the Clomid and the IVF. Like, who benefits from the majority of the population being infertile?
Yeah. And it breaks my heart. I did an interview with Kirsten Karchmer, and she was talking about having read a study where 97% of people who needed fertility support couldn't afford it. And she is like one of the leading fertility reproductive acupuncturists in the country. She's actually somebody that I've read work and I have learned from. And so when she reached out to me for a podcast, I was like, oh, because I'm a wicked fangirl of her knowledge and wisdom. And she's a beautiful person. And, you know, she says that like her heart broke for the fact that, you know, she had helped 10,000 women, and to think that wasn't even scratching the surface of the people who were struggling. And, you know, we really lost connection with being human. And the fact that this drive to have a child is a very natural, normal human thing. And
it should never be something that only the elite can do.
Yes. And that was essentially her point, was the fact that it has become such a business that, I mean, I can't tell you the number of women who have come through the doors of my practice just in the last 6 months who say things like, yeah, I'm not in an ideal relationship right now, or I don't have a partner right now, but like my doctor's encouraging me to freeze my eggs. I'm like, why?
They're like $10 a pop.
Well, that's it. Because I'm like, you're in your early 30s. Why do you have to freeze your eggs? And they're like, well,
the geriatric pregnancy age is originally rooted in the presentation of the Catholic Church attendance decline. I'm going to stab my computer. Okay, like we have got to stop plugging into narratives that don't serve us. Is there a shift at 35? I think we can both say yes. Physiologically, there's a shift. Mentally, there's certainly a shift. Emotionally, there's certainly a shift. I definitely think you turn more towards that, like, yeah, try me. I'm not going to be as nice this time, right? But at the same time, we've got to stop thinking that we're decrepit at 30 and we're too old to have babies. No, that's not the case. We just get more mindful and change the way with which we support ourselves, which can effectively be done with herbal medicine if it is implemented appropriately.
Yes, because if you end up going this freezing eggs route, you have to continue paying for storage. Then you have to pay, even if you have a healthy partner and you are healthy, if you're going to use these eggs and make embryos with them, now you have to pay somebody to do this fertilization, and then pay somebody for the drugs, and pay somebody. Yeah. And in this whole process, it's essentially feeding on people's desperation to have a child, but really not talking about the negative outcomes as a result of using the drugs. So it's like, guys, like IVF does not guarantee you a baby.
Nope.
IVF does not guarantee you're going to get a baby faster.
Nope.
I mean, I've seen people go through round after round of IVF and not have enough viable
eggs,
follicles, and then eggs as a result. And then when they do go to fertilize them, they're lucky if they get one
that sticks.
Correct. And then you might get through all of that, and then they transfer it and it doesn't stay. Like, no, people, like this is a colossal amount of money being spent
And a
on something
colossal
that,
clusterfuck.
and it's to the profit of the people who are manning the storage banks. Like, it's insane. And it's a beautiful option when people want to become a parent by choice. And if there is a genetic issue that is identified in both parents, but we're talking a significantly smaller portion of the population, I think the technology needs to exist. I think it is being abused at this point. And I think that leads to birth outcomes that then become controlled again in this system. And it breaks my heart, right? So again, we circle back to how, follow the money.
And it ain't in the herbs. There's a reason for that, right? But that doesn't make them less impactful, as we've discussed at length somewhat earlier on in this show. And it doesn't mean that it's not a good option for you. For most people, and here's the thing too, I want everybody to recognize and remember, herbal medicine is a subtlety. There is the guy or the girl at the bar that comes to the cluster of people that are like the intimate cluster of friends that are having a conversation and sipping on their drinks, and inserts themselves in like, hey, I'm so-and-so, beer goggles. We've got the person with beer goggles that just wants to be part of the conversation, but can't read social cues. There's no like, hi, my name is, would you mind if I join you? We've all been there. We've all experienced that, right? Herbs are the thing that stand back, observe the conversation, and figure out the best point of entry to become part of the natural cadence of the conversation in your body. And that's an art that takes time. We're talking about a plant that is capable of doing that in your ecosystem, which is ever-changing physiology. Talk about technology. So when it comes to appropriation, because that's where we started, right? Using herbs without knowing their origin, get yourself a notebook and get curious, right? Every time I create an herbal blend or an infusion for myself, I write it down. And then I write down a few things about the part of the blend that I'm making. But without knowing their origin, without knowing their story or their traditional use, that's appropriation. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to brew chamomile for sleep. It's another thing to call it manifestation tea while ignoring the centuries of healing wisdom that made the plant sacred in the first place. It's the matriarch of the plant family. What gets her there? Yes, she, her, consciousness, Yeah.
Yeah.
Very passionate about this. Like, it's very upsetting to me to watch people just like dilute such a sacred practice. It's like mixing herbs from different cultures in spiritual potions without honoring where each one came from. You wouldn't mash together symbols from Islam, Christianity, and Buddhism into a single prayer ritual, right? So why do we do it with herbs?
Or tattoos on people's body
that they don't know what it means. And then someone's like, why do you have deck on your butt? And you're like, what? Come again? Do you ever see that Big Bang episode where Penny fell in the shower and Sheldon had to get her dressed and take her to the hospital? And like, she had something tattooed on her butt and he told her what it meant. And she was like, what? Totally. If not, go find that episode. One of my favorite shows, or selling herbal products based on stolen traditions. This is a big one. While the origin communities remain unfunded or criminalized, this happens a lot. Indigenous, African, Caribbean, all these herbalists are often erased while their formulas are rebranded by wellness brands, which again, like everyone's like, why are you so mad at the health and wellness industry? And I'm like, because it's disgusting.
Because it's driving appropriation.
Like, choke me. Are you kidding me? Like, do you understand? No, you don't. That's why we're talking about it, right? Like, why does this dude making this formulation, sourcing from here, get to call it what is it called? A proprietary blend. Why does he get to call it a proprietary blend with zero transparency? Okay. Yep. And then why does he get to make millions when the original blend probably came from elsewhere that we can't properly track because other communities don't necessarily have the same means of documentation that we do?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck that. This is why large reason why I don't buy supplements anymore. That, and they're manipulative for the most part. They can serve a purpose, but they're highly manipulative. Cool. Your physiology is so fucking easy to change. Give me something harder.
Yeah. When we are able to listen to what it is that our body is asking for, and then go to a wisdom keeper. Now, I'm going to call it a wisdom keeper because it could be an herbalist, it could be a shaman, it could be fill in the blank, right? Somebody who is deeply in tune with the energetics, the properties, the synergy, the lived experience of walking hand in hand with the herbs that you're looking at. It's a completely different relationship. It's a completely different experience. You're going to see the therapeutic benefit that you're looking for when there is a relationship rather than a dictatorship.
I mean, and this brings me to treating herbalism like a trend instead of a lineage. Let me say this so loud. The earth did not grow these plants for branding. They are beings, each with their own story, cultural relationships, and sacred protocols.
Yep.
So when we go ahead,
I worry about shilajit, which is a Himalayan resin. I feel like that's going to be the next white sage because I feel like that's a buzzword right now.
Well, and everybody's taking it, but it's like, well, how do you know that's appropriate for you? Please, this is not universally applicable. Nothing is.
Yep.
And I don't care how good looking the person selling it is, or how stylish their brand is, or how great the technology of the delivery is. Sorry, no technology is ever going to override or overshadow the original delivery of technology, which comes from literally cultivating the herb and learning how to work with it in your kitchen. That is the ultimate technology, not in some liposomal delivery. P.S. Fat is not good for everybody. P.S. By the way, like that's not a great delivery source for everybody. And don't even get me started on capsules. Okay. If your digestion is shit, how much of that are you actually getting? Please educate me.
Well, from my training background, they would much rather you get it as a tea.
100%. Even if it tastes like shit. I'm sure you've heard this. I had a mentor at one point go, the worse it tastes, the better it is for you. Suck it up.
Yes. And I have a hard time getting people to comply because it's not aesthetically pleasing to drink.
A little bit of honey.
But capsules is the only way that I can get them to comply.
As I roll my eyes into fucking next week, I don't want the medicinal benefits. I'd rather it just like taste good. Listen to me. It's not supposed to taste good, right? Like if this entire process was easy, we would all do the same dumb shit to get ourselves back into the same predicament over and over and over again. The reason the healing process, which you're always healing, right? It never ends. But the reason the healing process, which has also been branded, is so uncomfortable and tastes so bad is because it's your lesson.
Well, and like I look at it as it's a flavor that you need.
We're not used to, too. Like most of these we're not used to. We are so hyper palatable at this point. We don't have access to go to any other country and these flavors are normal.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think about things that are like bitter. In Western culture, we don't do enough with things that are bitter, and our livers suffer as a result of that.
I love it when we're like, these bitters taste like shit. I'm like, they're called bitters. It's 3 seconds of your life
on liver and bitters.
It is literally 3 seconds of your life. Get over it.
Well, but we need more of that flavor in our day-to-day existence because bitter helps to move stress and energy stagnation in your body. So, but what do? Like coffee is bitter. I don't think coffee inherently is bad. That could be a whole thing based on pesticides and all that other crap. But that's it. We cover up the bitter flavor in order to make it palatable. And, we crave different things. Like for anybody who's listening who is a bleeding body, if you crave salt before your period versus craving sweets before your period. Like, what is it that you are craving? Are you craving red meat before your period? You probably need the copper in order to make more iron. So, like, your body asks for certain things. Well, we dilute the flavor, which has a therapeutic action. And we're already modifying the intention of the plant to do the work that it's here to do.
Humans are so arrogant. Sorry. Me too. I mean, I'm not pointing my finger at anybody. I've definitely been this person, right? I feel the more I learn, the less I know.
Yes.
And I feel the more I honor these systems in their natural presentation, the more I'm like, God, I'm so sick of humans. In the Western world, I'm sure it's different elsewhere. I'm just like the way that we have marketed everything to our benefit instead of to the benefit of the tradition or the benefit of the place of origin or to the benefit of, insert a multitude of other things here. The more I'm like, we suck. We suck.
There are definitely better ways that we could go about doing some of these things. And I think it starts with conversations like this and raising awareness.
We still suck.
Well, but it's honestly, we don't know what we don't know.
No, you're correct. This is why Adrienne and I do so well. She really brings a little softness to my brashness at times.
And she brings the fire to the fact that I am ever the politician. But it's, maybe I don't want to associate myself as a politician, maybe a diplomat. But anyway, that's my Libra rising talking. There always has to be like two sides.
Justice, harmony, balance, perspective.
So the perspective is that because we're so busy and overscheduled, most of the time we don't even think that we should be getting critically thinking around these things. And we don't even realize that we're doing it. We're just like, oh, this thing is supposed to make me feel good as I put the tea in my thermos and I run out the door because I have to bring a kid to daycare, right? Like we don't take the time to think about these things. So this is why conversations like this are critically fucking important. Mm-hmm. There's my fire.
Also, when you don't get mad at the quote unquote solution. The solution is only as impactful and effective as the ecosystem it's being introduced into for that of which you are responsible for.
Yes. And I think that is like the period at the end of this podcast, because if you walk away with anything from this conversation, I hope your eyes are more open to what it is that you're consuming, why you're consuming it, and is it working for you? Your eyes are more open to where is it coming from and what is its origin story.
When we extract herbs from their culture and their ceremonial roots, we're not just stealing ingredients. We're stealing relationships built over generations, plants that were prayed with, not just packaged, medicines that were earned through ritual and through devotion, right? We reduce living beings, plants that once healed, protected, initiated, to spiritual props or to medicinal props at that. And in doing so, we often flatten our own connection with spirit, right? And because true magic doesn't live in the herb itself, it lives in the relationship that you build with it. And not all herbal knowledge is free. So we're going to give you a lot, right? But a lot of what Adrienne's acquired and a lot of what I have acquired has been earned through oral tradition, has been learned through interactive education, right? Some is only passed down through initiation. There's some things that I'm never going to learn. And if we treat all wisdom as the same, AKA like that we can Google, which is not true, or ChatGPT, we're still operating through a colonial mindset.
Oh, we should do a whole episode on ChatGPT.
We could, because there is a sentience that's starting to come to it. So you all collectively are contributing to it.
Yeah. And I have had more people lately check my work with ChatGPT. And I'm like, but the computer is only as smart as what you put into it. So if the information is incorrect and it's not, anyway, I digress. But
No, I am just, it's like people trying to use ChatGPT for astrology. I find it hilarious because I'm like, do you know how many times I input things that I know for sure based on a chart I'm reading and ChatGPT spits it out completely wrong?
Yes. So don't trust your herbal wisdom to AI and Dr. Google, please. Just don't, because that relationship that herbal wisdom keepers develop walking side by side with the plants is only something you can get from a sentient relationship. There will never, ever be a technology that can do what human technology can.
The most sophisticated, period, end of report. And on that note, thanks for traveling this conversation around herbal appropriation. We got there and then we went away from it and then we got back to it. And if you guys have questions about herbs, drop them. I'm pretty sure you can comment on an episode. You can find Adrian at
Moon Essence Me. Yep.
Okay.
ME.
Yep. I'm at Rooted Radiance. Like, come find us. Come ask questions. We're happy to converse with you. This is how we spread the love and the knowledge.
Absolutely.
And yeah. And until next time, guys, stay well.